Vitya Diaries Chapter 24, Sugar, Baby. When we got back, Felix told me that Mokuchin had been such a good dog, which was something that I already knew and expected, and that they would be happy to watch him any time I was out of town, at least for long weekend trips. Others might be harder to manage, but I never went anywhere beside competitions, anyway. Except Moscow. Just 1 week until I'd see Nico again. School went by in a blur. I was supposed to be paying attention, but I couldn't. It was worse than if I had my next competition right in front of me. In a way, I kind of did. I had to be on my best behavior in Moscow, not only to impress Tetya Olya and Nico, but for Coach, too. Everything I did reflected on him. And skating. And Russia. I had no idea who would be at the gala. But if it was anything like other banquets and benefits, I was probably in for a rough night. We got to Moscow late Friday afternoon. It was a short flight, which was good, because I was still so nervous. I packed my best clothes and carried my suit onto the plane with me. Coach couldn't stop chuckling. "Vitya, you're so nervous." "I'm not. It was a lie." "You are Viktor Nikiforov, and I get what I want." "I know, but Igor." "Coach, I just don't want to mess up." "What is this going to be like?" "Like a banquet, I think." He shook his head and helped with our suitcases. We'd packed light for the trip, even lighter than for competitions, since we'd only be there a couple of days, and we had no costumes or skating gear or anything to bring. I trotted after him through the terminal. Hey, do you think Mokuchin is okay?" "I'm sure he's fine. Do you think he misses me?" "They're waiting for us, Vitya." We hurried out to the curb where Tetya Olya, their driver, and Nico were waiting for us. "Oh, Vitya." Tetya Olya came and hugged me tight. "You were so wonderful in Mexico." "I'm so proud." "I brought the medal to show you, too." I hugged her back while looking to Coach for approval, which he gave with a nod. "I'm so excited to see it." "Yasha, it's so good to see you, too. Come, let's get in the car. We should let you get settled in before dinner." With Tetya Olya bustling to get everyone and everything into the car, I was finally able to give my greetings to Nico. Seeing him there, remembering all that he'd texted, I immediately felt the heat on my cheeks. "Hi, Nico." "Hello, Miska." What was I supposed to say next? I'd been so confident when we first met, and I could usually come up with something when we texted. But the harder I tried to think, the further and further the words squirmed out of reach. But I couldn't stand there doing nothing. Vitya, it was Coach. "Get in the car." For once, I was quietly obedient, and never more ashamed for it. We rode in quiet for the 20 minutes it took to get to Nico's house. Tetya Olya sat in the front passenger seat so she could make business calls. I sat sandwiched between Coach and Nico because I was the smallest. But the car was big enough that it was comfortable nonetheless. I wanted to hold Nico's hand. But even though I didn't think Coach would have minded, Tetya Olya kept glancing back at us in the rearview mirror to smile and ask the occasional question. She didn't know about our relationship. And I really didn't want her to find out. It was taboo enough without having to throw the whole "their son of my sponsor is my boyfriend" factor into it. Yorgi had already hinted at the sugar daddy thing, and I was not having any of it. No thanks. I settled for leaning against his arm a little. He didn't seem to mind. Nico's house was huge, a lot bigger than Yorgi's and even Lilia's. I knew that Nico had siblings, but why they needed that much house, I couldn't even guess. To let people stay over? It was as good a reason as any, I guessed. Coach told me to stop gawking as we were led through the house and taken to the guest rooms. "My oldest boys are away at college, so we have plenty of room right now," Tetya Olya explained. "You two relax for a while and I'll let you know when dinner is. Cody Asher will get you anything you need." "Thank you, Olya." Coach then turned to me and Nico, giving us a glance over, and smiled. "I suppose I will relax in my room," he said, and went inside, leaving us alone. It was a setup. Once he was gone, and we'd both looked in the halls, we looked at each other again. It was different, seeing him there in front of me. Almost like a stranger, even though we talked every day. He'd told me so much about himself in text, but in the hallway, there was silence. It was almost like seeing a person's costume in ballet or on the ice, which portrayed so much about their personality and inner thoughts, and then not hiding all of that away. He smiled. I smiled back. "Hi, you said that already." "Oh, you're right." I hesitated. "Do you want to show me my room? It's right there." So it was, and so were the cues that he wasn't nearly as into all of this as I was. I could take a hint. Ha, okay. Thanks, Nico. See you at dinner? He watched me try the handle, and I soaked up every bit of satisfaction at the surprised look on his face when I stepped through. Okay. I closed the door behind me, leaving Nico on the other side of it. It had been the perfect opportunity to be alone with my new boyfriend after a month of being apart, and he'd promised to kiss me. But there I was, standing alone in a bedroom with my suitcase. No kisses, not even a hug. I left my luggage by the door and flopped down onto the neatly made guest bed, face first. I didn't bother with the light, didn't bother changing out of my clothes, or pulling back the blankets. I took a bunny nap right then and there, because that's what I did when it hurt too much, and I couldn't risk crying before dinner. I miss Mokyo-chin. Not bringing him had been a mistake. He would have cuddled right up to me and licked my face and stayed as closed as he needed to until everything was better. Or at least until I could face it. Was I ever going to do anything without my dog ever again? Coach knocked on the door a little while later, and I guess traveling had worn me out a lot more than I thought, because I was out. I only know he knocked because he said he did when he was nudging my shoulder, dragging me back to consciousness. I sat up, groggy, while he mumbled apologies. I thought you might have been with the boy, he said. I didn't want to interrupt, but it's time for dinner. I rubbed my eyes, yawned, and leaned against his shoulder. Nope, just me, Coach. Cripes, who do you think I am? I think you are Vitya. He got up. Come, get ready. Wait, what's that supposed to mean? He didn't explain, leaving me to get ready. I freshened up and followed Coach and someone who I guess was a servant to dinner with Nico's family. His papa was a lot like my uncle, busy on his phone and with the newspaper, always working on some kind of business thing, no real time for the rest of the table. It seemed to bother Nico a lot, which I completely understood. I probably looked just as distant and grumpy at dinner with my relatives. Then there was Tetya Olya and her two daughters, Anushka and Katusha, who took turns grilling Coach and myself. They all loved skating for different reasons. Tetya Olya had always loved how graceful they were, and admitted that she had once dreamed of being an ice dancer as a young girl. Her youngest daughter, Katusha, actually liked to skate with her friends in the winter, but mostly, the two girls liked to watch the men. They liked boys much the same way I did, and they wanted to know all about Sasha, and Georgi, and me. At least their attention got Nico to notice. Vitya, your free skate this season. It's so beautiful. And the costume. I blushed, pleased. You like it? It's really sexy. That black leather and sheer fabric. Yum. Girls, please. Tetya Olya laughed. Nico changed how he was sitting, uncomfortable. I couldn't blame him for that, either. But it was still kind of funny. The program was inspired by Mednoj Gorihozjajka. So it's supposed to be sexy. It's okay. I gave Nico a reassuring smile across the table, then looked back at the girls. But it's dangerous to get mixed up with it, you know. Ooh, a bad boy. They giggled, and Tetya Olya scolded them again. Back to your career goals, though, Vitya. Unless you're planning to marry into the family? I choked. It had been the worst possible time to take a drink, but I'm pretty sure I would have choked even if I hadn't. My first thoughts were, how did she find out? And is she okay with that? Before I realized that she was talking about her daughters, not Nico. By then, Coach was patting me on the back to get me to stop coughing, and the girls were laughing so loudly that their papa had stopped with his business to pay attention to them, asking what he'd missed. It was Nico who answered, skewering another pelmeni onto his fork. Miskas found himself a sugar daddy. We had cake Napoleon for dessert after dinner, and although Tetya Olya invited us to talk, Coach suggested I turn in early for homework and rest. I didn't argue. After Nico's comment, I was ready to have some time alone. Everyone thought it was funny. Of course, Tetya Olya scolded him, but the girls were on board, excited, even. I wouldn't be marrying either of them, though, and I hated that Nico played along with it. We had to keep our relationship a secret, sure, but that didn't mean bringing it up all the time. I'd rather be single than pretend to go along with that kind of scheme. I sat on the bed in my pajamas after getting ready in the shared bathroom, hair down, teeth brushed, makeup washed off, and flipped through my French book. I'd gotten a lot better in the past 2 years, and it was now easier than English. I just needed more excuses to use it, especially with Felix gone. Stravale. Questivariament Pardalatati. There was a knock on the door. Ooh, yes? Can I come in? Nico. I wasn't exactly presentable anymore, but maybe that didn't matter. After all, I was just a leech. Sure, I said, and dutifully went back to my book. He came in and shut the door behind him with a soft click. You're really doing your homework? I have to. Even when you're visiting guests? Coach has me doing homework during competitions, too, Miska. You're so cold. Nico came closer, one step at a time, cautious. He was teasing me. Are you upset? I huffed. I'm fine. He took a seat on the foot of the bed. Because of what I said? I turned the page without reading it, though I pretended to, and shrugged. It was rude. What if you did marry into the family? I won't. I can't. And I really didn't want to discuss the particulars of the impossibilities. Not when Nico was so picky already. What kind of bear do you think you are, Miska? What? My sisters wanted to know since they heard me using that name. What kind of bear? Koala bear? Grizzly bear? A little panda? No. I'm a polar bear. Really? Ah, because you're so sweet. Like the chocolates. It's because they're the ice bear. I muttered. And I think that's what Coach likes best, too. He leaned back on his palms, cheek on his shoulder to look at me. I hated that he was so cute, that he didn't even have to try to get under my skin and get me all nervous and flustered. He was a cute boy. A really dumb, kind of rude, cute boy. Sighing again, I closed the textbook. Nico, it bothered me that you said that because I don't want you to think that I like you for your money. He raised his thick brows, curious, waiting for me to continue. I'd love you even if you were as broke as me, so don't say stuff like that, okay? The curiosity on his face turned to startled surprise, and then he blushed right about the time I realized what I just said. Miska. I stretched my fingers over my mouth in horror. That wasn't supposed to come out. Not yet. Not so early. We'd only just started dating, and I had to go and drop that out of nowhere. I mean, you love me? If I wasn't blushing before, I definitely was then. Even my ears were on fire. What a mistake. But even so, it wasn't right to lie about that kind of thing. The heart needed to be honest, and I'd waited so long. If he were going to reject me for having strong feelings, it would have been better to do it sooner than later, because it wasn't going to stop. So I nodded. Why yeah. And then I opened my mouth to apologize, but before I could, he kissed me. Really kissed me. A lot of kissing me. The kind of kissing that had filled the screens of all those romantic movies Yorkie and I had watched, and wow, it was sort of incredible to feel like that. With his hands in my hair, and for once I didn't mind it, and him holding me close and just, wow. He left a little bit after that. Maybe because I was so shocked. Maybe because he was, too. It had been so sudden. So fierce. 100 kisses? I don't know. I couldn't count them because I was so caught up in it. Then he was gone and I was staring at the closed door with my heart beating fast and my French book on the floor and all of my thoughts completely derailed. Kissing. Wow. Boyfriends. Boys. I wasn't mad anymore. It was okay. And there was still another full day and night left in Moscow. Cripes. How was I going to survive? Somehow, I managed to sleep despite my thoughts doing combination spins between missing Mokyuchin and the fact that I'd just made out with a boy. Me, Viktor Nikiforov. In Moscow. It was a surprise when morning came, but one moment it was dark, the next it was bright, so I must have drifted off at some point. I got up, stretched, and crept out to use the bathroom. No one else in the house was awake as far as I could tell, though it was such a big house. I don't know how I could have known. It wasn't grand and old like the academy, or new like Yorgi's house, or even elegant like Lilia's. Exactly. It felt very firm and polished. Stubborn. There was so much room, it felt kind of like being in a miniature palace. As tempting as it was to explore, I went back to the guest room and did morning yoga and homework until I was called for. By then, I was dressed and feeling more out of place than ever. Nico gave me the tour after breakfast. My favorite was the grand piano, which Nico's sisters eagerly played for us. They were so much better at it than I was. All I could do was stare in awe. It made me like them so much more, and made Nico jealous. He, like me, didn't play well, though he hadn't ever taken lessons. I was supposed to be competent. It's stupid anyway. Nico made no attempt to disguise the disgust in his voice. It's not going to get you anywhere, so why learn it? I guess, I said. And maybe that was true, but it was so beautiful, I couldn't help be moved by it. Come, Miska, I'll show you my room. We went upstairs. His room was fairly plain aside from the fine furniture in it. He had some photos of trees tacked to a corkboard above his desk, and the bookcase was packed full of books. But mostly, it was dark, a little storm cloud in an immaculate cage. He took me by the hand and led me to his bed. All I could think about were the kisses from the night before, and that we needed to get ready to go out with his mama soon. She was treating us to lunch and more shopping before the gala. Would we get caught? Was this wrong? We sat and he touched my cheek, hand drawing back to brush against my ear, which tickled. I wasn't sure I liked it. Then he smiled. Miska, Nico. My voice was like a little leaf shaking in the breeze on the end of a long, naked branch. We looked at each other for a long time. It was like the time in the park, each of us wondering who would break first. But unlike then, and quite like the night before, I could see Nico's resolve crumbling. This time, I played tiger, and I kissed him before he could kiss me. Impatient Miska, he said, laughing, then came back for more. Giving in first might have been losing, but it felt like winning in every sense anyway. The rest of the day went well. We didn't get caught, and Tetya Olia took all of us out as promised. I got some new clothes with everyone's help. I think they had fun playing dress-up committee, and Nico managed to steal a few more kisses here and there when no one was looking. The gala itself was fine, too, and not nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. I actually looked really nice in my suit and everyone thought so, though Nico wondered if I would have looked better in a dress. I think it would suit you, he whispered to me at the table while everyone else had gone on to discuss business things. I'm sure I could make it look really good, but that's not the point, Nico. I want to see it sometime, if even just so I could take it off of you. Nico. Coach was the only one who even seemed to notice that anything was going on, and probably because I was so flustered the whole night. I wanted Nico to want me, sure, but grabby pause during a gala was far from appropriate. Honestly, the way he kept looking at me kind of reminded me of Rafe. But Nico wasn't Raphael. Nico didn't like just anyone like that. Only me. At least I was just nervous about having our scandal discovered instead of just being a clumsy orphan. Distracted by that, I got through the evening of fine dining and formal wear just fine.